Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome back to another episode of the Work and Talk podcast, the podcast for tradespeople by tradespeople. Today, we're going to shake things up a little bit, and we're going to be telling you basically the story on how I came into the skilled trades, why I feel like the path that I took was pretty unique compared to a lot of people, especially when it comes to New York City. The licensing requirements we know here in the Northeast is pretty more strict. It's more difficult, a lot of people would say. This more you go Northeast. So I can't wait to share that story with you guys. Maybe it'll give you guys some ideas if you're thinking about coming into the trades, what route you want to take, but also how basically you can get ahead in what I say is basically expedite the whole process in 4 years. And I can't wait to share that with you guys because this all started back in New York City. I grew up in Queens, so I know a lot of you guys already know. But I grew up in New York City. I grew up in Queens, and it's heavily union. So when you're growing up, it's either like, hey, you got to get a union job. You got to work in the city. You got to either work for the MTA. You got to go work at one of these places because guess what? You get in and you're going to be taken care of the rest of your life. Not a lot of people had a lot of success not going union. So when you're growing up, if you wanted to get taken care of, you knew you had to get a New York job. You know you had to get a city job. You know you had to get a union job. And then basically you just had to write off, you had overtime all you want, and that's basically it. So as I was growing up, a lot of my older friends, a lot of my parents, their friends were all union workers. My dad was a union bus driver. My mother, she was working in the city and she worked always at like City Hall. She was a nurse. So she worked at all these government buildings. So it was heavily a lot of individuals in our life was just union. And we come from the working class. You know, we came over and grew up in Whitestone. So we were right there on 14th Avenue. And a lot of people, you know, just going through the ranks, going through the years, they all told me you need a union job, get into the trades. And I'm pretty much the only electrician. Well, I was the first electrician or anybody in construction in that matter when I was growing up. My father was a bus driver, mother was a nurse. Nobody taught me to go into the trades except my parents' as friends. And they said, nah, you got to become an electrician. You got to go into this school. You got to go into this type of work. You're going to get taken care of. So growing up, that's all I did. So what was pretty unique about my background, I listened to a lot of those friends. And in New York City, what was pretty unique is we had what's known as vocational high schools. So vocational high schools basically will give you the schooling hours. It's basically the 4-year apprenticeship during high school. So, you know, when you sign up after school, a lot of people go into WICA, they go into NICA, they go to IEC, ABC for their 4-year curriculum. Basically, I got my curriculum during high school. So I was able to graduate at 18 with my classroom hours, my education hours already completed. So I just needed to work on my 8,000 hours when I got hired after 18. And when I was in this vocational school, they give you job placement. So right after I graduated, they threw me into the job site. What was awesome about that is, once again, I'm green, other people are green. Yes, I had some schooling. I still don't know how to maneuver around a job site. But what was pretty unique was everybody I was starting with who didn't go to a trade school, they had to end their day at 4 o'clock because they had to go to school at night to take, you know, the apprenticeship course, the curriculum, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. On those days, I got to stay in the field. I worked. So in New York City, if you are working overtime, you can still count those hours towards your licensure. Remember, I already had my schooling, so I didn't need to stop. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I was cooking OT, overtime. And I caught up my hours quicker than anybody else. So basically, I was already a journeyman. And when I went to test out at 22, I already had my journeyman's license. And that was unheard of. Now, New York City, New York State, no matter what county you're in, there's no journeyman license. I wanted a license real bad. So I went over to Connecticut, which is our neighboring state. And that's where I got my journeyman. And that's where I eventually got my contractor's license. To the point where that's why I've been in the field so long in the sense of a contractor, because I started so soon. I did my schooling already. I applied it, got my 4 years. The second I hit my 8,000 hours, I tested out. I didn't wait on it. once again, it goes back to, because I had a lot of friends who told me, get your license as soon as you can and forget about it afterwards. If you don't want your business, then don't open up a business, but don't stop until you get that license. Because on the flip side, there's individuals who just push off their license, and then they don't want to go get their license. Then studying becomes more difficult. He goes, you're fresh, you're young, study for it, get it out the way, rip it off. So what was exciting about the Journeyman license is you only needed 8,000 hours to get your Journeyman license, and then you had to wait 2 years to get your master's license. So once you got your Journeyman, you can work part-time, you can work full-time, you can work overtime, you can work no out overtime. It doesn't matter, because you just had to hold your Journeyman card down for 2 years, and then you can go for your master's. So at that time, I was taking other courses on how to project manage. At the time, I was actually working as a firefighter as well. So I was a New York City firefighter. A lot of people actually don't know that story. I didn't tell a lot of people. But yeah, I actually worked as a firefighter. I actually worked in Grand Central Terminal Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. Then I worked in fire control room when it was all the fire alarm systems. So went back into the electrical side of things when it was testing, uh, inspections, and then it started going into the building code. So that's when, after I was working in the fire department, I went for my electrical license. I also went at the same time for my inspector's license. And I know a lot of you guys seen that I have my electrical inspector's license. And that was because when I was working in the firehouse, they made us do like site inspections, fire alarm testing. Uh, they had us do little site surveys. They made us do like safety walks. And a lot of that stuff applied to the IRC, the IBC, the residential building code. We had to learn up on all these codes because in Grand Central Terminal, when it came to the MTA, the fire chief, the fire department, basically internal, we were the AHJ, because in the city, and if you're working for a government building, you technically don't need to get inspected, because you're a municipality, you're a state, your property, the railroad is owned by the state and federal agency. So you got away with that's why you see so many hack stuff. But if you're a subcontractor of the MTA, then you had to get your stuff inspected. But a lot of the things that you see shoddy, like if you go to New York City and you're like, yo, who would wire up this stuff? Or you see liquid tight everywhere, or you just see some nasty stuff. Most of the time it's because it's a MTA employee. MTA falls under the federal because it's the railroad. And then guess what? That bypasses a lot of inspections. Not a lot of people know that. So that was pretty exciting, the stuff that we got to see. But I learned a lot of the side on inspections, building, fire related, because I worked in the fire department in New York City for the MTA. Then when I got my electrical master's license, I also jumped into my inspector's license. So not only did I go for my contractor's license, I also went for my inspector's license, because the same thing. I knew a lot of people who are inspectors wait till they're older in years. They wait till they're old. They work 30 years, they're falling apart, and then they jump into inspecting or they jump into instructing. And I said, let me grab all those certifications while I can now, while I'm young. And guess what? It's easier to renew this stuff, because all we got to do is do continuous ed. So when we started doing continuous ed, it was just basically show up to a class, cool, my license is good for another year. And that's all I had to do. I had to pay what, $75, take a 4-hour class, and I'm good for another year. I'll do that. And now in 30 years, I don't need to wait. And then technically, when I'm 30 years in the field now and I'm ready to retire, my license is going to say I've been doing inspections for 30 years. So now you have senior. It's a whole mumble jumble. But basically, that's how I did it growing up. I basically expedited my entire career when it came to the trades, because I went to a vocational high school. If you are coming into the trades and you have a high school that teaches you your electrical curriculum, your plumbing curriculum, your HVAC curriculum, I say jump all in, because guess what? You're going to expedite that process. While everyone else is starting at 18 with you, guess what? They got to go to school. You're racking up that overtime. So now you're actually making a little more change, because you're making more in the overtime. But at the same time, you're putting in the hours, which is making you get ahead. That gap between you and your fellow employee, it's just exponential now. You're just doubling down, and then you can get your license even sooner. It took me 21. I had my hours. I applied for it, got approved, and got my test by the time I was 22. I failed it twice, but hey, at 22, I still had my journeyman's, held it for another 2 years, got my electrical master license at 24, 25 in Connecticut, and then held it for another year, got inspectors, and then opened up business for myself. And now I've been in business for 6 years. I'm 31 right now, so that's how everything fell apart. Not fell apart, came together, and the bricks just laid themselves. And I was always the type of person, I always like to jump into something. Even if I don't have all the answers, I want to jump into it. I want to learn from it. I learned the hard way. But at the same time, when I learn that way, I like to make sure I don't fall for the same thing, you know? So if there were things I really needed help with and I failed it, and it's like, dang, you get back up, you say, okay, I did this, it didn't end good. Let me try this, and that. Boom, it worked. Cool, let me try that again. Bump, bump, bump. It worked. Cool, I'm gonna start doing this from now on. Once again, I was not that kid who always had a crazy upbringing. I didn't have a crazy childhood, like partying and all this stuff. I was never attracted to that stuff. What I did have, honestly, was a solid group of older friends. I was the young cat with all my parents' friends, So I was 13, 14, 15, and we loved sports. I was playing soccer with 25, 26, 27, 28, 30-year-olds. So it was always competitive. I was always playing with the older group. So it's like I always wanted to be and compete with that on such a high level that it like gave me this like desire to always like go after it. And the same thing when it came to business. When I was getting my journeyman license, when I was going for my contractor's license, and I'm seeing these guys who are like 30 years in business and saying, oh yeah, good luck on your test. I'm like, why do you try to make it? You're not making the trades look attractive. So I would go in and then cool, I got my license just like this guy who's 50 some years old. And guess what? I'm holding my own. And then the same thing when it goes into business. There's individuals out there like, oh, you don't know business. All right, then how did I build it up? I'm not going to back down from stuff like that. So that experience, all in all, I feel like just kept pushing us. And it really shows you, like, if you put yourself in a scenario where you're learning from other people older than you, older people who know more than you're always going to end up being in a better position because you're learning from that. If you're hanging around with people who just want to hang out, who just want to go drinking, who just want to act crazy, that's the type of life you're going to end up. And that's not something I always wanted. I was always putting everything on the line. To this day, whenever it comes to business, I go all in, to the point where like people are like, dude, like, how do you handle all that debt? How do you handle all this stuff? How do you handle all that stress? And it was like, that's just the way that I personally like to take something. It's like Rocky. You ever see the movie where Rocky's always getting punched in the face? And it's like, why doesn't this dude move? And it's because he's like, that gets punched in the face, punch it, and he likes to be in the pocket. You know what I mean? Because if you're punching him in the face, he's up close, and then that's where he gets you. Bang, 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 and he hits. So everyone's like, I learned the hard way. But just because uh, you go through the ringer, just because you learn the hard way, doesn't mean you can't learn from it. That's the point of it. If you just got beat down, you get back up, get beat down again, and you're not like, okay, try something different. Clearly, if you just get up and go, you're just going to get hit. But if you get hit, get up and say, let me try to move this way and try something, guess what? That's part of the learning. That's part of the growth. You know what I mean? There's individuals who will say, oh, you just because you have this, and this, you're taking away the learning. What? No, I built my own thing up. I built the business up because I learned the hard way. I don't need to keep falling over something just to prove a point. No, I fell over it once, picked myself up, pivot. That's what I want to teach you guys. And especially when it comes to the trade has so much to offer everybody. Every 3 years, the code book gets renewed. Every 3 years, you got to go take another class. Every year, you got to renew your courses just to get your license renewed. There's so much involved when it comes to the trade, and it's constantly learning. So to say that there's only one way to learn, once again, that's just limiting beliefs. You're just only learning the way that you're taught, and what works for you may not work for somebody else. Just like schooling. A lot of people go to schooling after high school. Some people like myself and a few other people went to schooling for your apprenticeship training during high school. Everybody has a different story, and that's the beautiful part. You can have your own story. He can have his own story. He can learn one way. You can learn it left, right, up, down, black, white, whatever. we're still all electricians. We're still all master electricians. We're still all contractors. You know, when you try to like belittle things or belittle the trades or belittle what the contracting field has to offer, that just shows like it's not for you. But once again, that's why the trades are so amazing, because there's an avenue for everybody. It doesn't have to just be this. It doesn't have to just be that. Just because there's union, there's also non-union. Just because there's contractors, there can be employees. Just because there's licensed guys, you can just be an installer. You can go down whatever path you want with the skill trades. When it comes to plumbing, HVAC, electrical, you're always going to be in a trade, a craft that's in demand. So just take full advantage of those things. So that's just a little background about me and how I got into the trades. It was pretty fun getting into that scenario, getting to hit the ground running when I was young. Once again, I give it to a lot of the older friends my parents had. You know, they didn't let me do a lot of stupid stuff, which looking at it now, I'm happy about it because I got to be in this position. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that you get to see when you're looking things from a different perspective. Like having those older guys, they were basically always like hooking me up because I was the young kid. You know, I was 13, 14, 15, hanging out with 25, 30-year-olds. And they was always taking me out to dinner because they always had the money, or we would always go play sports and they would never go easy on me. They would always go rough. So you always learn that resilience, but at the same time, they always took care of you. So it's like I had a whole bunch of older brothers looking out for me. So all that was just an awesome learning opportunity. And now we want to do that, have the same approach, have the same love, have the same compassion when it comes to our education, when it comes to the school. So just like everybody else, typically people wait till they're ready to retire to become an instructor. And that's how the trades are when we were younger. No, all the instructors were pretty much old guys who've been doing it for 30 years, had successful businesses, decided to hang it up, and now they're teaching. They're either teaching or they're instructing. I decided, hey, let me build a school. I don't want to just be an instructor. I want to build a school. So that's the avenue that we're going in now. And once again, it just keeps going back to what the trades have to offer. There's so much stuff out there that you and I can take full advantage of, you know, but at the end of the day, it's your choice. You know, apples to apples, peaches to peaches. If you like this, you'd like that, go on. The trades can give you something that you never knew was possible. But all in all, if you're coming into the trades, make sure it's something that you want to do. Test it out. If you don't, if it's not, hey, that's your choice. But the trades can give you a life that you never knew was possible. The trades can give you a set of freedom that you never knew was possible. Now, I never would have thought that me as an electrical contractor, I'd be traveling the world, getting to meet a lot of you guys. I never thought being a contractor would give me a type of life where, hey, we can now build up a school to give the next generation something. I never knew being a contractor would give me enough funds where we got to change the industry literally within a year to the point that not only are we going to build builders, we're going to build leaders. And by building leaders, we understand we're leading people who like us, we're leading people who don't like us, we're leading people who believe in competition just because they got to keep up with us. All of this stuff is because a dude learned how to twist a light bulb on and now exponentially blew that up. That's all it is. And that's what the trades can do for you. So if you're an electrician, there is literally no cap into your earning. There's literally no cap of what you can do, not only at work, but now you can expand that to anything. If you're a plumber, if you learn how to fix a broken toilet, next thing you know, you're going to be freaking building your own school. You're going to be traveling the world, documenting the stories of the most influential tradespeople. If you're in HVAC and you learn how to fix a freaking thermometer, you know, next thing you know, you're going to be traveling the world. You're going to be building your own school. You're going to be doing your own podcast, you name it. But all in all, once again, this is everything that the trades have to offer. If you take full advantage of it, if you give it everything you got, you're going to go miles in this industry, because we see the record right now. For every 7 people leaving, we have 1 person coming in. You don't need to be the best. Okay? I'm telling you now, your work ethic, you always want to take pride in it. But you don't need to be the best. You just have to outweigh all these old guys. They said 50%, 40 to 50% of the workforce is going to retire in this 7 years. If there's a competitor you have, give it 7 years, they're going to be pooping in their diapers. They're going to be retired. They're done. They're hanging up. They're one fall away from breaking their back. Of course, you don't want harm on nobody. I'm trying to say, knock on wood. What I'm trying to say is basically in the next few years, if you stick around, if you just have your license, if you're just present and you keep learning from your mistakes, you're going to hit it big because there is literally going to be nobody else. And you guys who are starting now, if you have your licenses in another 5 years, you're going to be in business 5, 10, 15 years already. You're going to be a well-established business with an unlimited potential source now. That's why I keep telling people to get into the trades. That's why I tell people to stay positive. The trades have something to offer. If you're down in the dumps, if you're Mr. Negative, it's because guess what? You're not doing something you're supposed to be doing. Now you can say, hey, you had a rough patch. Everybody has a rough patch, but we can learn from these. Learn from it so you don't run into the same thing. If you have the same problem, that's like with my wife. Whenever I piss my wife off and I go, babe, I'm sorry. She goes, you're not sorry. Why? Because when you say sorry, you're supposed to learn your lesson. You can't keep saying sorry for the same shit that you keep doing. That's when it hit me. I'm like, oh man, I keep saying sorry for the same thing. So if you guys are running into scenarios, if you guys keep failing on a question on an exam, on a test, in the job site, you keep messing up on stuff, stop, figure out what's going on, change something, and then try it again, and then make sure you don't go back to those old ways. If you keep falling at the same spot, change your position. You know, it's something as simple as that. So all in all, guys, I appreciate you. Welcome. And I thank you guys for coming back to another episode of the Work and Talk podcast. I want to hear from you guys. Did you guys join the trades because you wanted to, or did someone push you into it? Where are you guys coming from? I'm over here in the Northeast in New York. How about you guys? How are the licensing laws? Are there vocational schools by you guys? I want to hear from you guys, all right? So comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Have a good night, everybody.